So as you know, the IB changed their requirements for the extended essay for the class of 2018. And I thought it would be a good opportunity to talk about the changes to the formal presentation and actually give you some tools that are going to help you out as you write your extended essay, including formal presentation. So if you look down in the description for this video, first you'll see a link to this Google Drive that I've set up, this folder that I've set up in Google Drive, which has a template that I'm going to be working with today, the extended essay guide for the current exam session for the class of 2018 and later, and perhaps importantly, exemplar extended essays. So the IB has not released exemplars for all subjects yet, but for all the subjects that I could find, I have included the exemplar essays. Now, note that these are not all great essays. They are graded essays. Some of them are quite bad, but the nice thing is the scoring rubrics explain why they're good or why they're bad. So you can see some examples. But today I'm going to be working within this extended essay template, which I've placed here, and which you are free to download and use and adapt to your own extended essay as you see fit. This document, I'm going to go ahead and just download it to my desktop. It's going to be a lot easier. And then I'm just going to open it in Microsoft Word. Okay, what this is an extended essay template that I've designed with feedback from our diploma program coordinator. And I've used guides mostly on how to write a master's thesis or a doctoral dissertation, actually, from a couple of different universities. And what I have for you is I have title page, I have table of contents, I have the text of an essay, I have references, appendices, tables, about everything you might include in your extended essay, and I've shown examples of how to do them properly. Now, I have for you first a title page, and everything that you see highlighted in yellow should be replaced with your own text. Okay, so I suggest following this formatting, putting your subject at the bottom, putting your personal code and your exam session and your word count. Obviously, you will adapt this for your own purposes. The table of contents. I have a table of contents that's automatically been generated, and it's automatically been generated by my use of headings. I'm going to come back to that later. But the table of contents can be modified for your purposes, and here's an explanation of how to do that up here. And of course, remove this before you publish. I'll show you how to automatically create your own table of contents, although you could just modify what I've done in the body of the essay and then update your table of contents. I'll show you how to do that later. You'll notice I've got a lowercase I as the pagination for this page, and the title page is not paginated. So I've gone ahead and already inserted section breaks so that the pagination flows properly for you. I also have a list of illustrations. If you include illustrations, then it's completely optional. You can incorporate labels for them and captions, and we can automatically generate essentially a table of contents for your list of illustrations. The gray text that I have for you comes verbatim from the extended essay guide. So I put it in there for your reference. You should definitely remove it before publishing your essay, but this is just here as a reminder for you to understand what the IB is looking for. And then sometimes I'll have little comments here myself. What I say here essentially is that some subjects are going to have lots of illustrations like visual arts. Some might not have any, like Category 1 papers, for example. It really depends on your subject, and if in doubt, talk to your supervisor. I also have a list of tables. If you're doing a science paper, it could make a lot of sense for you to have a table of data. And then I have a couple, I have what the IB says about tables, and then, again, my own comments speak to your supervisor. You'll note that typically tables are not counted toward word count, but if the scorer believes that you are trying to use a table to circumvent the word count limit, they can bust you for that. Okay, now we're going to go with the introduction of the paper. Here's what the IB says about the introduction. Here's what I say about the introduction. You have 4 rules for all academic writing, unless you hear otherwise from your extended essay supervisor or later on a university professor. Your essay should always be Times New Roman, 12-point font, 1-inch margins, double spacing. Always, 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 unless you hear something different from the person assigning the paper in question. You may have noticed or may have thought to yourself that it could be useful to keep this template and use it for papers that you write at the university level. I'd certainly encourage that. You'll notice at the top of the page I have Introduction, and I've created it as a heading. You'll see heading 1 is highlighted. Now, you probably don't do this as standard practice. Probably what you do is you tend to just center it, or you left align it, you embolden it, you make it larger, and you do all this manually. But there's a cool thing when we add it as a heading, and I'm going to show you. If I look at the table of contents, you'll see my introduction here, and my investigation and body is highlighted there. Now, that's actually done automatically. Watch what happens if I unhighlight this. Okay? And I go back up to my table of contents. Now, my table of contents, it still has it highlighted, but watch. I'm going to right-click on my table of contents. I'm going to choose Update Field, and I'm going to update the entire table. And now, the body of the paper, or the body that I've had highlighted previously, is no longer highlighted. It has updated it to reflect that heading change. Now, what's nice about that is when you put in a heading or a subheading, you can automatically make them appear in your table of contents, and your table of contents will stay formatted properly. So that's really nice. So I talk a little bit about how to use headings here, and you can follow those directions if you want to, but again, remove all this when you actually write your own paper. Here's what the IB says about the investigation. I'm just going to skip over this in the interest of time, but I'd certainly encourage you to read it and refer back to it. The investigation is by far the most important part of your paper. And then the conclusion follows at the end. I will tell you never to include new arguments in your conclusion for almost all subjects. The exception would be science, in which the conclusion could talk about subsequent follow-up studies to analyze things that your study didn't do, or it could also discuss weaknesses in your methodology. However, in a history paper, in a literature paper, and almost every kind of paper you can think of, the conclusion never presents new information. There should be no citations in the conclusion, unless it's some sort of conclusory quote. There should be no new argument introduced. Let's talk a little bit about word count. The IB says you're limited to 4,000 words, and if you go over 4,000 words, it will cause point deductions in several different criteria, or mark deductions, I should say. The word count includes certain aspects of your paper, and it does not include other aspects of your paper. However, if you try to use a table or an illustration as a way to sneak in more word count, like you use a caption for a illustration that presents an argument, the examiner can, at their discretion, include that into your word count. If you use a footnote that is not a reference, that is an explanatory footnote, it needs to be included in your word count. If you think, well, I'm at 4,060 words, I'm just going to take some of my points and put them as footnotes, and then I can sneak below the 4,000 word count limit. That's not going to work. And also, you should be aware if you think, well, my essay is 4,060 words, but I'm just going to put 3,998 and they'll never know the difference, right? Wrong. You're uploading your papers digitally, and there are tools that can count the number of words that you include. And if the IB has any suspicion at all, and they catch you at it, that's academic malpractice. It is a failing condition for the extended essay. So don't do it. Just don't play around with word count. You have too much to lose and not enough to gain. Here is how the extended essay is scored. I have for you all of the different marks and all of what they say to get complete and full marks for every different criteria. You'll note that critical thinking is by far the most important criterion in the extended essay grading rubric. So I would encourage you, when you're reading your own paper and when you're writing your own paper, to refer back to these points and make sure that your essay corresponds to these criteria. And in the extended essay guide, which I have for you in my Google Drive, it has all of the other mark schemes for the different criterion. So you can see what scores 3 marks, what scores 2 marks, what scores 1 mark for a given criteria, etc. Engagement is primarily your reflection. So the 3 formal reflections that you do, as well as your supervisor comments. Now, I have a little bit at the bottom here about how to put in figure and table captions. So I have instructions for both Windows and for iOS. I have a link that you can follow for more information on captions and tables. I have some examples of figure captions down here. And then I have 2 tables. One, I have just a generic table format that you can certainly use and modify to your needs. I also have an APA formatted table in case you are doing a psychology paper. Psychology typically uses APA style, and APA style comes up often in university studies or grad school, so it could be handy to hold on to this for later on. I also incorporate information on how to play around with text styles. You can actually describe what kind of text certain parts of your paper are, and it will ascribe certain formatting guidelines to that text. Most of the time you don't need to do that. However, headings, very important because that will carry forward into your table of contents. References, works cited, bibliography. References for APA, works cited for MLA, bibliography for Turabian or Chicago. Here's what the IB has to say about your bibliography. Here's what I have to say. Remember, use Zotero to automatically insert a bibliography. If you don't remember how to use Zotero, I'm going to put a link to my Zotero lecture in the description of this video as well so that you can refer back to that. Again, it's going to save you lots and lots of time. You should certainly have it installed and configured before you start writing your extended essay. It will help you insert citations properly and manage your bibliography. Okay, appendices. Appendices are pretty rare, and you'll note that the examiners will not read them or use any information contained with them in the assessment of the essay. They will look them over, trust me, and it will influence their assessment of your formal presentation. However, you very rarely will use an appendix. Here are some examples of appendices you may want to incorporate. So again, this is what the IB says about them. And again, you want to use an appendix title using the heading, and it will automatically appear in your table of contents, right? Appendix A. And then here's some more information about using appendices. Here's how to insert more appendices and preserve certain pagination, or to make sure each individual appendix falls on different pages by inserting page breaks, that sort of thing. And a final figure there with a caption that gives you more context on how to incorporate labels. And then, just as you did in the table of contents, if you make a change here and you go back to your list of figures toward the very top, you'll note that it's not highlighted, but again, I can right-click on this, I can choose Update Field, update the entire table, and now it is highlighted. Okay, so whatever text changes you make, or if you embolden, or even if you knock it down to another page, it'll automatically update it with the correct page that it falls on, which is very handy. So obviously I can't cover everything there is with formal presentation in a short video like this, but I wanted to give you an overview, and I wanted to give you the tools that you need to get started on your formal presentation. Obviously, if you have any other questions, feel free to come see me in the library or reply to the email that I'm about to send you. Or you can leave a comment in the video below. Maybe you stumbled upon this from a different school and you want to leave a comment down below. I'll certainly take a look at those as well. So I hope you found this guide useful, and I hope it comes in handy as you draft your extended essay.